How do we do, everybody? NP here with some map overview and analysis of the 2025 Worlds Final that happened in Germany earlier this month. And I wanted to make a cool little video just kind of going over the placement order options, and just kind of dissecting what each player picked, whether I think it's good or bad, what order I would like to go in and stuff like that. If you don't already know, and two things to clarify out of the way, like this is of course super subjective to my personal preferences. I want to make that very clear. I think placements are a huge part of Catan, but there's kind of a misconception that like they're not that important at times, and you can kind of play. It's how you play the full game. How you play the full game is also super important, but I think to give yourself a good head start, you have to place well. You have to have confidence in your setup that aligns with what you want to do, with what you is like objectively good, like production wise, and can build well, or is flexible if things go wrong and you have good outs and options. There's kind of that standard level where you want your placements to be, and then if things lean one way or another, that starts to become like a personal preference thing. And we'll go over a couple options that are definitely personal preference, and especially picking order, that becomes a kind of personal preference. But I do think sometimes there are kind of like leaning more objective, like better picks and better options to be had. But let it be known, the game still has to play out. The game of Catan, especially in person, can last for hours. There's a lot that goes into it, communication wise and decision making wise, and placements are just a good head start to really get you going. And so I think a good thing is to clarify that also at the Worlds level, they weren't able to talk during placements. I guess that was a rule. I was not there, but I have been informed that people could not talk during placements, which also might change your trajectory and how you think you're going to place out, because you can't communicate with people. And as we'll see on this board, there's a couple plows that people could take, but if you can't talk with someone, I don't know, do you have confidence that they will plow you, or are you more confident that they won't because you can't really talk it over? And if they do all of a sudden plow you, that like they think you're going to come after them the whole game. There's stuff like that, like metagame thinking, of course. And as well, if you do not know that at a final like this, and a final in a lot of tournaments, and even semifinals and even preliminaries at some tournaments, they allow you to pick your placement order, not just, oh, you're going first, you're going second. They allow you to pick. So there's randomized first. Let's say it's randomized, but not for this, because there is a ranking and a list of people who have done well. So the first on the rankings got to decide which placement order they wanted to go in, and we'll get to that. But let's first just go over what actually happened in the World's Finals, okay? So we have Cahulan, sorry if I'm pronouncing his name wrong, but he's from Canada. He picks 9, 5, 10, and goes left. Then we have the other 9, 5, 10, Raul from Mexico, picked this point right. Then we had Guido from Italy, interesting enough, pick 5, 6, 11 point inwards. Then we had David from Hong Kong pick 8, 3, 4. And this is important. He picked 8, 3, 4 with the wheat first, and then 6, 3, 4 with the brick next, pointing to the 8, 4, 8, 3, 10. But this gets gobbled up by Guido, who goes back again and picks the 8, 10 straight up on the sheep port and points in. Back to Raul, who picks 6, 11, 12 points left to the brick port and 3 to 1. And then Colin comes back with 6, 2 on the ore port, pointing to the 5, 2. And there you have it. Those are the World's Finals placements. I'm curious to think if you thought that's how it would place out, or what your thoughts are on it. I've kind of reviewed this board and gone over placement picking quite a bit. And by the way, this is on Two Sheep, a great platform for map making and just playing Catan in general, and changing up rules quite easily. It is a great platform I prefer to play on in most cases. And and the developers are working on a new platform to come out very shortly. So excited for that. But for map making purposes, Two Sheep is fantastic. Now, I want to play a fun game with, no matter how you think about these placements, what do you think the placement order was based on the picks that happened? First getting this, second going there, third getting that. Like, can you think to yourself what you think the placement order would be and who picked what? Because I couldn't. It is a hard skill to figure something like that out, but I'd be impressed if you could. But before we get into that, I mean, you already know maybe if you've seen the game and how things worked out. I just want to go over back to the first position and just analyze each one that picks. So say get placement order options out of the way. We'll get back to that later. But say it was just concrete and Coulon had to go first. Do we think his pick was a good option? He picked the 9-5-10 and pointed left. And in my opinion, yes. I think 9-5-10 is clearly one of the best options on the board. I think it's definitively kind of the best first pick to take. And a Worlds Final with a 9-5, the main or, there's the 12 or, but you can consider the 9-5 the main or options. I think it is a healthy one to pick when you also pick up wheat, when it's kind of clustered in this top left sector, which you're not likely to get and use to a great capacity with other setups. And I challenge you guys to pick other places and see what you can get as first on the rebound as your second placement. But just looking, we typically like to look at coastal spots if we're going first because the rest of the board's going to be taken. So I suggest that if you go first, you look at coastal spots. It is a helpful tool for sure. And you can already start to see 8-4 if that's left. Is a great out for 9-5-10. 8-10 if left is a great out for 9-5-10. I think you can infer 8-10 is likely not to get picked because someone's going to try and go, unless 9-3-10 goes, and I don't think 9-3-10 goes because I think they know first would want to pick 8-10. I think 8-10 will likely be clogged up. So I'm going to look at 8-4 here and 6-2 here on the OR port, pointing to the sheep. As well, if you're good at placing things out in your head, you would find that 9-3-11 will be open most of the time and first, and is definitely playable simply because of the wood port over on the left, and makes your quick settles if you just get a sheep trade on the on the wood port or on the 9-2 or something of that matter very effective quite fast. You can even travel to here 9-2 and then the sheep. It's kind of similar to a 6-2, but it will take longer to get there. And it might, but if this wood port gets disrupted, it might be a problem. But anyways, we know first has a lot of great options and outs. So I think Coulon did a good job in that picking 9-5-10. It's not a crazy brain thing to have to understand. I think most people would look at the 9-5-10 and say, yes, solid pick with solid outs, take the 9-5-10. Now let's go to second. Now I am on record for criticizing this pick from Raul with 9-5-10 second, but I then challenged myself and why I love doing stuff like this. What is a better second pick? And I challenge you to do that as well, because I've gone through the board and I think second is having a tough time here. Some might say the 5-6-11. You'll find a lot of these spaces get clogged up and there's not much left that looks good for 5-6-11. You might, maybe the 8-10. I don't even know if that's open. I think Raul actually placed the best second best option. I'm going back on my word. I just think second is pretty bad. I think you can evaluate if 9-10, 5-10 always goes first, or most likely goes first. Second is a bad option to have, and you are likely looking at this corner brick spot, the 6-11-12, or maybe even 6-11-4 if something else happens. That looks like your best out, and I don't personally love that setup on this type of board, and just in a Worlds Final it's quite slow. I think you have to get lucky with just dev cards that you pull. Your production isn't that great, and you're so much challenging, of course, always to the sheep port if it doesn't even get taken just straight up, which it does. So I think Raul picks the best pick in 9-5-10, but I think on this map second is just the worst by far option to pick for me. We'll get into who picked what in a bit, but first let's go to Guido. 5, 6, 11 inwards. This is where there's some major talking points here. First of all, inward pick with a lot of picks, fourth still yet to go. And then, I mean, you're not going to pick like 9, 3, 11 as third. So you're expecting no one to pick this 9, 3, 11, which could be a big brain move. But of course, this is a starting road that someone like Red could easily pick up as well if they wanted a starting road option and kind of just screw you almost instantly. But Guido kind of goes mentally and assumes that 9, 3, 11, he goes very aggressive, that 9, 3, 11 is going to be open because you have to assume this is going to close off down here. The sheep is quite good, especially with this brick pairing. 6, 3, 4 is likely going to go. And so, yeah, there's some major risks there. I don't hate pointing up here either. The 4, 11 is secure and what a lot of people might do. But here's the thing. If he's assuming white's going to, or not white, the fourth is going to pick what they pick, blue's never going to pick this. It basically comes down to whether you think red is going to pick or first is going to pick 9, 3, 11. And if you assume he's not, this is kind of the way to go because you're going to gobble up more brick and wood and be the concrete road player, of course. But if red did take 9, 11, 3, your game is instantly dead. And this is where the meta, mental analysis and not talking during placements comes in and is very important. If you can't talk during placements, I can't make a deal right away, maybe with red, that the 9, 11, 3 is going to be open with for me. But on the other end, if red screws white just might fully give up and attack red the whole game, and 9, 3, 11 might be a little more awkward spot for them to play from if they are being attacked by white to that degree. So he does a very risky play pointing in. I kind of respect it, and I think it works in his favor. But let's go to fourth pick. 8, 3, 4 is taken first, which again, that's important. And then 6, 3, 4 to the right. Interesting order of selection. So he takes the brick and the sheep. I like these spots if 8, 4 is guaranteed. And again, it's another kind of risky play where both of these people are going for spots that red can easily take. And why 9, 5, 10 is great, because they're basically left with spots that could screw anyone you want at any time, and it gives you that leverage to do so. Why I think placement, deal making, and talking is super important, because red could get a lot of leverage from not taking either of these spots from these players. And I actually really like fourth's setup. I think you would start with the wood though, because if you think about it, you have light wood, so why not start with it? Roll 1, 4, you get your sheep and the other wood you need to settle, and then you're just looking for the bricks. And if you can kind of analyze this brick is likely to be, settle on blue. It's the best off blue. That's tripled up, likely not to be hit. So you're going to be rolling bricks, needing 1, 4, and then you have an instant road settle. And especially on this 8, 4, I love that spot. The only other situation is but you don't know, if red would take 8, 4, you are instantly screwed. Pink might be a little less screwed than white if this is taken, because they can go to the wheat port and kind of fiddle around with the 8, 10 and things like that, especially if red goes here. The 8, 10 is probably open for fourth to snatch up and play a wheat port game, which could work, but you can't deny losing the 4 or 8 is a huge hindrance for them. So I think this is the best option for fourth if 5, 6, 11 goes. I would be inclined to take the 8, 3, 10 too, which is a very fair spot for them. But if 8, 4 is guaranteed, I love this. If you're not as confident 8, 4 is guaranteed, 8, 3, 10 is not a bad second option, but you might have to realize you're racing the sheep port against someone with better wood brick. So is it better to just take that risk? I don't know. And I think it's a fair risk. If you get it, I think you reap a lot more rewards than the 8, 3, 10. And I kind of want to go back to Guido actually. and what I would prefer to pick in this situation as third. I kind of like just taking the wheat straight up as third, solely because you could end up in a spot. I mean, this is risky. Someone could take that in the first place. Also, fourth could do 8-3-4, and say they do the safer pick, thinking 8-4 might get taken. They do 8-3-10. Now what do you do in Guido's spot? You're basically forced to pick 6-3-4 to the 8-4, or again, at any point, red could pick one of these options, and now it's safe for them to do so because they're screwing you only one spot, not both of them. When you got to assume that's pretty fair at this point for red to do. And you got to be comfortable with this, I guess, if you do 5, 6, 11 point right, because I think there are games where at least 20 to 30% of the time, maybe 20, maybe it's less, that the fourth player goes like 8-3-4 and like 8-3-10, and you're left with like no wheat in this very road heavy position. And some people are comfortable with that. Sometimes I'm pretty comfortable with this. This version of it isn't my favorite. Just because it seems kind of weirdly coordinated, and your spaces aren't as easy to kind of see out to full efficiency, but it is playable still. You just have to be comfortable. I personally would just gobble up the wheat because I know I get like a guaranteed good out, where if then for, like, say if you pick this, go up, fourth might pick basically what Guido did, but they could do this and take the sheep port again, but you basically guarantee this position David had, which I will really like. All right, so let's go back and pick what actually happened. David was up here, he went here, and then back to Guido. Now what do you do? This is an interesting point, and I kind of like what he did here, because he went full send. That 3-9-11 is going to be open. If you're going to go full send, that 3-9-11 is going to be open. Why not just go 8-10 and point in? You just signaling to the whole table, I am the road player, no one screw with me. And I think that might be pretty fair for board balance. It's like a uncontested road setup, but it's not that crazy because they've one road settle and then a bunch of others, and they only have a sheep pour, and you could block it pretty well, especially once the fourth gets on this 8. 8 could be blocked pretty easily. So it's not crazy. And if he assumes he's going to get 9-3-11, might as well forfeit one little brick spot if he's going to get onto it anyways, and just ensure he might have flexibility with the port. With 8-3-10, if you look at it, you have another settle option here. You might chase the sheep port. You would have to really rely on 11s here, and then blue might go backwards. So there's a lot you risk if you go straight to sheep port. But if sheep port was taken, you just had the 8, that's one settle spot, that's 2, that's 3, that's 4, that's 5, there's 6. In road, you basically need 6 settles, a city, and a VP, or 2 cities. And I don't think your path changes all that much settlement-wise if you just take the 8-10, because I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I think this like space is going to be most likely open here. You're going to have all the brick, so unless like 2s pop up like crazy, but you'll have all the brick and the most flexibility to absorb a lot of these spaces. I think they'll most likely be open, and you'll be fine in getting your full 6 settles. So if you don't need to settle in this area, I don't see a massive reason to get the 3 unless you just really want to double up those 3s. Which can, of course, come in handy. I mean, honestly, someone like me might just do this, even give up the sheep port and just go portless, because that's kind of how I operate at times. I love portless setups to a degree because it kind of forces you to figure out like a puzzle of a situation, and when it works, it feels so good. But so I don't hate the 8-10 here. I think I think Guido plays like the most interesting setup, in my opinion, on the board. And he's, again, banking on the 9-3-11. And now back to second, where I think Raoul was just forced into 6-11-12. This is one where I don't see anything else really being playable here. You want to match your wood with the high brick. There's brick port, which you need like some 2-for-1 option here. It's slow. Your settles aren't great. You just lost a sheep port. You're have the 3-1 on just a 5 sheep, an 11 sheep, 12 ore. And if you want to get to 9-12, that's another road and takes a while red is going to likely accumulate ore before you even get there. It's a tough time for blue in my humble opinion, but I do think 6, 11, 12 is the best out there. And then here's another, I think, contested choice option is back to first. What would you pick? I'm so interested to know. I think a lot of people would go 8-4 and call it a day. I don't think that's bad. I mean, I think it's a very workable option. You're basically like Guido is, saying, I am the Orweed sheep player. You just denied fourth that 8-4, making their dev game really hard if they try to combat you. I do not hate this option at all. It does start to become a little 10 reliant, but if 10s really hit this game, this player can start popping off well. You just have to think army is transferable on this board. I think it will work out with like sheep port options, with wheat options heavy over here. I think there's tradability to still give maybe fourth or the second player army against you, or like other devs to combat against you and like soak up the VPs or monos or what have you. So there's a chance here. I think a lot of people feel comfortable enough to play this, but then there's also the 9-3-11 option. Do you completely destroy third's game and you're not allowed to talk to them during the placement? During placements, so you're kind of just like, oh, they'll forgive me instantly after this. He's instantly dead. 2 settlements with going nowhere, needing 2 more roads this is awful. You took away his road spot. His coordination is pretty bad with nowhere to go. I would assume third is instantly dead and gonna come after you this game, and you have to decide, do you kind of want that, but you get the starting road flexibility of woodport. It's a fundamentally, without emotions in the game, a solid option, but Catan isn't so simple. And as we know, there's then the 6-2, which Cahulan ends up taking, and I do like this spot, and I think it's underrated, underappreciated. I think first and foremost, people will just look at the 2 and say, yeah, that's a 2. That's kind of a bummer. But it's really the ore port that does it here, and the mix of the wood port as well as if you get both spots, you are kind of cooking, I would say, probably in the 1 position. You have very complementary ports that match with your settle, that match with a great build of 10 army game. And if I'm talking about what I would personally pick, if the 2 was a little better, I think I insta-click the 6 brick option. How I view this board is I'm probably going 8-4, because what that does is solidify my dev game pretty well against the 4th player. Then they're forced to kind of go to the wheat port, maybe even like a 6-3 option. And if they get 6-3, that's honestly pretty good for us, because then we have a battle against road and priorities start shifting for players. So we have someone who's just forced into a road game now with wheat port if they get to the 3-6, and we have this player already going for road. And fighting for devs is going to be so much harder for them unless 4s pop off, where us taking 8-4 basically solidifies us in a great position as we share wheat with blue. So if they and have more sheep than blue, we also have the 3-1. They don't to start. We have more ore. I think 8-4 gives you a clear objective what you need to do. 4-11 is also left there, and not really a good settlement spot for pink, or for 4th to immediately pursue, for 2nd to immediately pursue. I think it kind of stays there. The wood port isn't really necessary, but of course we'd love to double up the 10 just for a dev. 10 hitting is insane, and sharing, I think when you share the wheat like this, and 10 is isolated, that 10 is crucial for this person, unless it starts to get solo block, which it could. At least you have the 3-1 to make up for it in the long run, especially once you get a city, and then the other person with the main wheat, you just kind of cut off from devs in the 2nd place. And I don't mind leaving all this space for the road players to kind of fight over it. I think pink might naturally go either to screw us to 8-10, but might just go for the 3-6 to with coordinates. That's what I would do. I think that's like your only chances is kind of build to that capacity, because they could go to 3-6 and if they're fast enough, go back to 8-10. So personally, if the 2 is a little better, like even a 3 or 4, that even 1 production or 2 productions just makes all the difference for me, because it makes the efficiency make more sense, where I can feel myself getting to the 2-5 and the wood port fast enough, because I love this combo if it's fast. But as I've played so many games, there's so many games where 2 might just never roll, and in a Worlds Finals, I'd feel less confident with that, where the 8-4, those are 2 great pips to pick up instead of just like a 6-2, and the 3-1 is great. 6-2 is also great. I think they're both great for once you city the 9-5-10. I don't think you can go wrong with either one once they're citied up in the port option, but Coolant goes 6-2 and does very well with that option. And now that you've seen the final board, I'm going to go over my preferences and what I like the most. And here, based on the final result, I like David's spot from Hong Kong in 4th position. I just think with the 8-4 open, this is the type of position I personally love to play. Also with the 6-3 out, like if you do roll well to start, grabbing the 6-3 adds so much to your game here. And with the 8-4 out, with the potential to go back to the 8-10, get the 8 here, there's with 8s start rolling, which they eventually do, there's a lot you can do with the spot. Granted, if you start, you got to pace it right. And I think David doesn't pace perfectly in this game, but I think if you play this position very well, this is something I personally love and would want to have. And then in second, I would want first option here with the 9-5-10 6-2 Coolins pick. I think in general, again, the 9-5-10 is great, and then the 6-2. I think again the 2 kind of persuades me more into 4th. As this has more production and just coordinated rolls that can just pop you off really fast, where 6-2 has to play way more of a balanced game and kind of figure it out, and may be pretty slow to start, but maybe that's because they pace well in the end. But the 9-5-10 is just so good on this board that I just have to consider it next. And then third, I gotta be Guido, because he locks down a win condition here, most likely with road, and so you're guaranteeing yourself 2 points. It's just kind of a long path to figure out, then get to your settle, get to the next settle. But if it's a long drawn out game, there's a lot of potential for this third option with the 8-10 6-5 11. And then last, I just think the 9-5-10 6-11 12 is kind of just stuck in one of those muddy, unclear positions where you're just trying to figure out what the hell you're doing. Your settles aren't that great to start. You don't like gain any extra efficiency for these settles too much. Your best port is a brick port that is doubles up a 12 only. Like if 12s pop off, hey, you're gonna have a great game. But then you also have this dilemma: is like, do I make 3 roads for the 9-12? Do I settle on the 12 brick port and then go to the 9? It's like an awkward spot to be in, and when you're already having that dilemma and an already kind of spot, I just don't like it as much. And so those are my rankings based on how the board actually played out. Now, what position would I want to take on this board if I had first option? It switches up just a little bit. I think if I had if I was able to pick, I think I would go first. I think first is one of those, you just know exactly what you're going to get on the rebound. Like I said, 8-4 is likely open, so I know I'm going to get 8-4. I know I'm going to get 6-2 as an out, if you really plan ahead, you kind of will know most of the time 9-3 to 11 is going to be open for you generally, and all 3 of those again just work out super well and are complementary to this spot, that I would have confidence in myself to play the 9-5-10 spot, even though I like David's position more per se, mostly because Colin took the 6-2. And fourth, you can't really guarantee that spot that David got, but fourth has flexibility, I believe. I think similar to first, I think fourth gets very good clarity based on how the spots go on what they need to do, and I do think they're left with a lot of good options. Like if 5-6-11 gets taken, if the 9-5-10 gets taken by whoever, fourth gets like the David setup option. Again, if you're confident in the 8-4 being open, you can do that, let's say the weak gets taken, let's say 5, 6, 11 gets taken, you can play a pretty nice sheep port play here, or you side by side, or you can just do 6, 3, 4 to 8, 4, 9, 5, 2, like something like this, you know. And if 8, 4 again is open, this is a great opportunity. I think fourth is the most flexible to first, just having grayed outs in general. I think first is just so guaranteed that I like it more. Then next I like third, because you either get something like Guido's spot with a combination of these two spots, or you can have the, I think you're likely going for a road angle. If road gets taken up, you just kind of do this spot again, and then fourth picks like probably this or this, and you'll take that or that, you know. It's not too shabby. So I think third ends up in a great spot anyways. And then again, I think the worst is second, and I challenge you to guys to find a good second option. I think the problem with second is if you start placing out things, just like, let's just place out random spots, like we know what kind of spots are going to get taken, and you're just left, all right, this second with these, not great. Like, you got the other or spot, but you're lacking in a lot of ways now. I really don't like second here. Like, these other options don't work that great as well. And 9, 5, 10, if that becomes your best out with the 6, 11, 12, I think 12 second is just bad. I just wouldn't want it. So based off that and how I feel, again, I liked first, I liked then fourth, third, and second. Let's see how they actually picked. And the first one to pick their order was Guido, and he picked third as first. Again, I thought first and fourth were better, and he ended up picking third. And maybe he kind of picked what he thought would fit his play style, but again, to me, that's like slightly a mistake, and something I would do different. Again, no critique on like all these players. They made like Worlds Finals. I'm not trying to be that harsh on them. And Guido, all these players were super close. Raul would have won if it made it to his turn. Guido had a pop for the win. Things could have gone different for David for sure, based on dev draws. But so all these players made something work with what they got, which makes them good. I just think from a placement picking option, I would not prioritize third here. And then Raul does the thing that is, I think, the most questionable thing. I think he went second. I think when someone already goes third and like kind of has an idea of something, and you have second with 9, 5, 10 in mind, I just think you're in a bad position, and I just don't like second. I'd much rather just be confident again in taking first here, which is what happens next. Cahulan goes third and picks first as the option, which I think is absolutely correct. And hey, the guy won, and I think he had the best placement order option pick. And then next was David, who didn't get a pick, and I think he got the second best option pick. And so with all that, let's just take a look at the final board and see how things looked out, and see if you haven't seen the game, if you had any thoughts of how it would finish out. And so as you can see here, kind of, there's some bad quality to this stream. Also, the pieces look ugly. They're like European pieces, I guess, that look just like blobs on the screen, especially white. I can barely even see it, and I can't tell like what's a city or a settlement. I think it's kind of gross. But just looking at the roads, I mean, let's look at first. Coolin the wood port got sniped from him, which is kind of important, but he was able to double 9 and then race to the 9-12 and didn't end up getting that, but ended up settling at the 6 and getting the 2-5, and he ended up BTTing for the win. Second was Raul. He only got 2 settles, but he did end up getting Army and was a point away, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, this is an odd position. To be like, the fact they only got those 2 settles, I think, is kind of hilarious. And then there's third, which, look at the road path. I mean, we could kind of predict this, that they would gobble up. It's either you get like the 6 here or the 9 to here for your last settle, and then trying to figure out that last point. But yeah, this is kind of what we envision when we see these placements, and then what we kind of envision too from fourth, getting the 8-4 clearly, going to the wheat port. Interesting, though. They didn't go 6-3, so no coordinated sixes. We got the 3, and then went back to the 8-10, sniping that from first position, and then wrapping around the 8, which I didn't know was necessary. I think he could have just built here for this final settle, but I didn't think road was going to happen for him, so I think that's just a wasted road. But yeah, this is how it all turned out. And so with that, this is all to say that I think there's value in going over this and just what players are doing at that level, the world level. I think we have to have some leeway for these people if we think they did good, if we think they did bad, being at that stage, being that moment, like, oh my God, I'm one game from being a world champion. Like, your mind can be racing all over the place, and sometimes your decision making can falter a little bit. Sometimes you have to take risks, like 6-5-11 pointing in, 6-3-4 to 4-8, and sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. And it's like, when they do, congratulations. When they don't, it's like, you can't blame it. Like, I mean, it's a tough spot to be in, and so we have to evaluate this pretty fair. But it's also good to just go through this for yourself, because you want to end up in good spots you're comfortable with, and I think that's the most important thing. You don't want to start a game getting instantly plowed, losing, getting emotional. Those are the type of games you lose most of the time, and the games where you're just thrown off kilter right away. Or so you want to kind of envision your future before it happens in a game like Catan, because the variance throws you for a spin. So if you have some type of game plan that is pretty reasonable, and you think things are going to be open, you want to make the unpredictable as predictable as possible, and then it's up for the rest of the game after placements to play around the variance. But good players play around the variance, where it's like, the worse you are, the more you suffer to variance once it stops going your way. So I think things like placements are incredibly important, because you kind of start to figure that more about yourself. You learn more about the game, you have more confidence in how you play, and then you get to evaluate how other people might see the board as well, and how they'll place out, and that makes it easier So thank you guys very much for watching. I hope this was informational. I just thought it would be interesting to go over this. I want to go over the actual stream of the game itself, and go over important decisions by the players, whether good plays, bad plays, and just see what decisions could matter on a stage like the World Final. But this is just the placement aspect, which I think placements you can talk about forever, especially with the placement order option thrown in there, because they are such an interesting part of the game, and something we all have to learn to get good at. I am not the best at picking placement orders still, but doing stuff like this even just helps myself out, so I hope it helped you out.